Mr. Matthew Lee, former Senior Vice President of Lehman Brothers. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Backus, and the other members of the committee. Thank you for inviting.
If you can pull that a little closer to you so
Sorry. Shall I start again?
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Backus, and other members of the committee, thank you for inviting me here today to answer questions about my story. I provided a written statement. I will definitely come under 5 minutes. I'll give an even briefer oral statement. Many people don't know me. I was born and educated in the United Kingdom. I have an undergraduate and postgraduate degree from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. In 1977, I joined the Arthur Young office, London office in the UK. I was transferred in 1981, 29 years ago, to the New York office of Arthur Young. I have 3 accountancy qualifications, one of which is Certified Public Accounting. I'm registered in the state of New York. At Arthur Young, I specialized in financial services companies. I attained the position of principal, and I specialized in financing products, repo, reverse repo, securities lending. I also specialized in international securities and US trust banks. I made my career out of understanding internal control, identifying issues, figuring out potential issues, resolving issues. That's what I did for a living. I was kind of like a professional whistleblower, if you would. Typically, my business was transacted by word of mouth. If you've got a problem, you fix it. People usually fix it. I very rarely reduced my issue resolution to writing. I joined Lehman Brothers just as they went public in 1994. I was hired in. I didn't answer an ad. I was approached because of my skill set as an issue identifier resolver. They had an issue in their equity finance business at the time. I became global product controller, equity finance in '94. I held that position twice. I also held my final position twice, which was the global product controller of the global balance sheet. Sorry, not global product controller. Global financial controller of the firm's balance sheet and global legal entities. There were a number of issues over the years at Lehman. If I fast forward to the end of 2007, beginning of 2008, I had my normal load of issues which were discussed regularly with my peers, with my boss. Those included all the items in my May 16th letter, which I'll get to in a second. They also included issues in the second email that was talked about earlier. I'm sure we'll talk about it later. My own personal issues were not being addressed at all in the 6 months in 2008. Other issues were not being addressed. There was very little communication between people senior to I and myself, giving me some kind of pacification as to why these issues weren't being resolved. So on May 16th, which was 2 weeks before the end of the second quarter, I hand-delivered my letter to the 4 addressees. And I'll give a quick timeline of what happened. May 16th was a Friday. On the Monday, I sat down with the Chief Risk Officer and discussed the letter. On the Wednesday, I sat down with General Counsel and the Head of Internal Audit, discussed the letter. On the Thursday, I was on a conference call to Brazil. Somebody came into my office, pulled me out, and fired me on the spot without any notification. I stayed. Sorry. I stayed another 2 weeks. I had other meetings with internal audit. I realized that nothing was being done about my letter. I was so mad that nothing was being done that I said, okay, I'm going to write down some answers, some other issues that were outside my domain. I drafted a second letter. I sent it to my attorney, who decided not to issue it. Instead, he wrote the meat of the letter in 2 paragraphs in an email. that was discussed earlier. Sorry, I've gone over. I'll keep going. The Repo 105 issue was included in there. I mentioned that was outside my domain. That letter was issued on June 10th. On June 12th, I met with Ernst & Young for the first time. In attendance also was the General Counsel of Lehman Brothers and the Head of Internal Audit. At one point, the General Counsel and Head of Internal Audit left. I was left alone with Ernst & Young, two partners. As I've said, I started out life. I worked several years for Ernst & Young. I have a loyalty to them. I said, well, if Lehman Brothers is not going to address this, they'd already dismissed my email through my attorney. They were having nothing to do with my issues and other people's issues. So I told the contents of that email, I didn't have the email with me, to Ernst & Young, which is where they learned about Repo 105 and a couple of other issues. There was an audit committee the next day. I think the next, sorry, I'm just ending now. The only other point of note is on page 960 of the examiner's report, there's reference to a presentation to the audit committee about my May 16th letter, some of the points. It does not have any content of the email in it. I was not asked to give any input or presentation to the audit committee. Sorry, I've got overrun my time. I'll accept any questions. Thank you. From within Lehman,
Yes.
annoyance. From Ernst & Young, they knew it. They knew the points.
They knew it, but were they supportive? Did they say, oh, yes, but that's okay? Did they defend it? What did Ernst & Young say?
They certainly didn't support it. On the Repo 105 issue, they knew about it. They did not appear to know the number was so large. It had risen from 25 and sometime in 2007 to over 30 by 11/30/2007 to 49 at the end of first quarter.
Let me ask you, to the extent that there was any ambiguity, do you think that the FASB's subsequent revisions have improved the situation?
I can't really comment on that. I mean, FAS 140 needs to be killed, if it's not already. It's a continuous process which peaked at the end of a reporting period. So if you read the examiner's report, sorry, I delivered my May 16th letter by hand. The auditors I never gave anything to. I verbalized what was in an email. And as I said...
Let's talk just for a moment about the content. Were you trying to indicate that something improprietous was taking place?
In my mind, yes.
And were you trying to indicate that this act could be harmful to investors?
That was underlying it, yes.
Did you ever have an opportunity to communicate this?
What does this mean?
The fact that there was something improprietous taking place that may be harmful to investors with reference to Repo 105s?
All my knowledge, Repo 105 is well known in the firm. The other factors were well known in the firm.
Excuse me, I'd like to know how they became well known. Did you tell some specific person, or did you give it to someone in writing, that these Repo 105s were in some way improprietous and may harm at some point investors?
At only one stage did I put it in writing, but for months, years, it was
Is your
verbalized.
answer yes, that you did convey this?
Yes, I did.
And did you convey this to the audit committee?
I have never attended any audit committee.
Did you convey it to an auditor?
I did, two.
To two auditors? Did you receive a response with reference to what you conveyed?
No, I did not.
There was simply nothing said to you after you passed this on?
There was just acknowledgement that they knew about the issue. As I said earlier, they didn't know the amount, I don't think.
Now, you've heard Mr. Black. He has used the term fraud. Are you of the opinion that there was fraud?
I'm not a lawyer, I can't comment.
I'll accept your answer.